Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today I have the pleasure of checking out a track from the acts named Flowers for Juno titled Without Love, the 7-inch Deadly Sins mix. And if we switch over to here, I think that's what the two little commas means. We're going to be listening through this track from start to finish. We're going to hear what we think. I have listened to these guys before. I've listened to a bit of the music. I've enjoyed my time with it. We've got more today though, so let us go. Let's do it.
What is love? Love's the ghost I've never seen.
Incredibly atmospheric off the bat.
Love's the place I've never been. Love never caught my eye. I'll grow old but never wise.
I mean, that vocal fry is sensational down that lower range. That's awesome, and how it harmonizes with the synths.
Without love, without love, without love, without love, love's never love me. I was at the party, but she never came. Love's the blue sky I never see. Love, you're invisible to me. Without love, without love,
I mean, it's ferocious.
without love, without love, without love, without love.
It's like a mix that is simultaneously claustrophobic but also quite magical sounding with how tight the mix is. The repetition of that Without Love line. The tone of those guitars is very distinctive and it's carried across some of their previous works. Like, I've reviewed their EP, their latest one, Be My Bloody Valentine, as well as Physical Culture and stuff like that. You know, I've reviewed music from them before and I've typically enjoyed my time with it, but their guitar tone is very distinctive across their mixes, as well as the vocal style, and the bass and drums are nice and flush as well. Violent guitar parts.
Love's the God who wishes don't believe. Yet I find it so hard to breathe. Without love, without love, without love, without
Huh? Ultimate section? Kind of toning it down, I suppose, at this point. The guitar arpeggios. That was very quick. That they just kind of cut like that. I adore it. I think there's a lot to appreciate about this track. There's also some stuff I'm still kind of pondering, but we'll talk about that more in the conclusion after I've had a look through the lyrics. So we've got the lyrics for Without Love here on the screen. Hopefully it's big enough for you guys watching this. Love's the ghost I've never seen. Love's the place I've never been. Love never caught my eye. Girl, but never wise without love. Oh, okay. She never learned my name. I was at the party, but she never came. Love's the blue sky I never see. Love, you're invisible to me. Oh, okay, I get it. All right. Love's the God in which I don't believe. I think this is a cool line. Love's the God in which I don't believe, yet I find it so hard to breathe without love. I dig it. I think that this track is quite easy to understand, like lyrically at least, but we'll talk about the whole entire thing in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Flowers for Juno titled Without Love. It is the 7 Deadly Sins, 7-inch Deadly Sins mix. Now, what do I think this track is about? I think it is about someone who love and they have a tenuous relationship. Well, to be fair, they haven't really had one. They don't believe it. It's like a God they don't believe in, but they struggle to breathe without it. It's something they'd like to become more familiar with, and they realize that they'll grow but not wise without it. But it's just something that just seems to escape them. It's kind of like looking for that water and oasis and keeping thinking it's there but kind of missing it kind of thing, I suppose. It's a story that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. People have tried to find love and lost and etc. but never, or maybe never even had it. I think there'll be an audience that listens to this and will be able to sort of connect with it. I think it's just an interesting story anyways. It's a neat little insight into the act and what they're about. And there are similar themes to this that I've heard from previous tracks from Flowers for Juno. The vocal style is great. It kind of reminds me of him from the mid-2000s. It's really neat with the little bit of vocal fry coming in, well, quite a bit of the vocal fry in the lower range, that kind of growl or kind of the gruffness, I suppose, the grit in that lower end of the range, going into that mid for the verses and choruses, kind of up and down, playing with the listener's expectations and predictions. We went up in our range a little bit, like in like the bridge section or like the later half of the track, which is something I haven't really heard much of from them, so I kind of appreciated we explored a little bit. That could have also been like a synth or a guitar line, but I'm pretty sure that was a vocal bit. It was nice to explore that upper range. You know, we're clearly confident with our place that we do our hook lines at. I think the melodies that we crafted within this track are compelling and easy to sort of understand and digest, and they're effective because of how they harmonize with the backing instruments as well. It's just also nice that we went a bit higher and we really kind of sat with that uncomfortable kind of rumble there before the rest of the band came in and just things kind of escalated. I think the variety of different emotions expressed, it's very dramatic and interesting to listen to, and I think it works well with the story that we're trying to tell. It makes it more interesting to listen to. I mean, the song itself is within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, with 2 being, 2 minutes is too short in my opinion. You could be missing context there in the track if you don't have it as long as that in order for the listener to understand it. More than 4 minutes with a similar theme, you're kind of potentially going to overdo things a bit or overplay stuff. We didn't have that situation here. There were several different concepts or ideas across the guitar, bass, drums, and synths that we had here. We were very comfortable playing the instruments. The performance itself was tight. The structure and transitions were smooth there. There were no uncomfortable moments. It was an interesting introduction there. It didn't necessarily signal what was going to come in later on, but I liked the synth kind of soundscapes we had, how kind of fluffy and pretty they were. I mean, I see the pinks that are in the album art, in the single art there. It's got beautiful kind of major and minor-ish kind of tones, very kind of moody and expressive there. It's not super minor, but it could be. Like, there are minor tones and triads and stuff like that within this piece. But I think it's kind of carried by like a lot of the glow of the lead guitar parts with the melodies and arpeggios we had like later on in the piece there as lead lines, but also the distorted guitars with a bit of grunt in that lower range there, rolling with the distortion there in the deep. It was wonderfully powerful. And again, I think I mentioned the word lush at some point because of how tight and full-bodied the combination of the guitar, drums, bass, and synths were. The synths in the upper reach, they're harmonizing and stacking neatly on top of those rhythm guitar parts. The bass below it, nice and powerful and kind of huge sounding there, really kind of roaring, but also very kind of dominant. And it filled in a necessary part of the frequency spectrum, and it was very satisfying. It reinforced the root notes that we had in a way that made sense. and allowed the track to move forward in a way that was very palatable. We also had some synth strings in the start, and they were kind of coming in and outwards, and it was almost like you were having a dream or something like that whilst the guy said his piece, and I appreciate that. It was before the drums kicked in, and I like that it was almost like we segmented it in two. We had really awesome effects on the guitar as well. I mean, like the synth strings there, introducing some of the chord progressions and melodic ideas we'd have later on, but in a way which wasn't too similar so that things didn't drag. And a piece that was quite tight with its mixing, so there was a sort of similar intensity with the loudness of it. The guitars were some sort of chorus and kind of not flangey effects, but there was a bit of manipulation of the waveforms there to kind of get them to almost have a early 90s grunge sort of aesthetic to them that was kind of neat. It kind of sounded warbly and like it was you were in the water or something like that listening to it. It was like you're being soaked in the water, if that makes it, soaked in the music. Like soaked in your own emotions, maybe, I'm not sure, or soaked in that need for love. The drums, though, when they came in, were fantastic. I appreciated the different grooves we had there, typically working with eighths there, some 16ths in there, some interesting fills occasionally there. But we also knew to not have any drums at the start, to kind of keep it nice and floaty, and to have the vocals as a dominant main focal point. And then the drums again were just the groove which went along with the bass and the guitars and the synths on top to make it really compelling. And there was enough change with the mid and higher layers throughout to keep the track intriguing, as well as the story continuously being divulged to us as we went along. There was also some violin that went on with the guitar parts. There's so much that happened in this track that I've had to occasionally pause and go through it. I like the violining at the midpoint. I thought it was a nice break between the verse stanzas there. It was really just great technique on the strings as well. Go wah, wah, and it was a nice foil to some of the more dominant parts that occurred with like the pulse of the power chords previously. Overall, what would I describe the mood of this track to be? If I'm honest with you, it sounds like a piece that it was someone working out their situation and realizing just how kind of screwed they were without love, I suppose. It was a song where kind of we were by ourselves. I suppose I would say miserable, just kind of just suffering from that lack of it, and slowly we became more aware of it, and maybe that's why things became a little bit more kind of intense as we went along, and then maybe the bell curve went down a bit when we realized that's what it was, and maybe the awakening is kind of a bittersweet thing where we knew exactly how badly we needed it, but we still didn't have it. I'm not sure, but it was nice for things to come down in intensity later on in the track to smoothly. Well, it wasn't a smooth exit, was it? It was kind of bombastic even till the end. It was almost like the drama didn't occur even if we'd had that epiphany. But the theme with the sort of dominance of the minor sort of key in there, with the leads there, not really trying to raise the spirits there, the consistent pace of the drums indicating there's not a massive change in the approach or like the mood of it, kind of signaling frustration and like just a want or a desire for that. I think ultimately the theme of the track was really interesting there. That was catchy as hell. The song will be stuck in my head for the rest of the day. And ultimately I just think the performance as well was tight. They did really well handling this. I don't think there's a note out of place. But the studio recording, mixing and mastering as well, I'm very happy with that. I think that the vocals are nice and present in the mix. The guitars, bass, drum, synths, and the strings and stuff like that were well niched within the frequency spectrum without any resonant frequencies. In the stereo field, it was nice and wide. Things came backward and forward, especially in the intro with those synth parts there, kind of encouraging you to sort of be surrounded by music and take notice of it. There was also a dynamic range in the sense that the vocals, like there was less happening at the start. But even if the mix itself was quite tight, things were glued and potentially to the point of nearly being overcompressed. It's still like there was points where you could tell it was going to be louder or quiet. There was still just a little bit more oomph when the drums and bass came in than otherwise. But it was still a very tight mix there. They were on the verge of it being a bit too much in my opinion. There was a relative consistency with the loudness the entire time, that I think if it pumped too much, it just would have been a little bit too kind of suffocating. But maybe that's the kind of vibe they were going for, I'm not sure. Either way, I still think it's done well. I think it's ready for release. It's nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting is handled, and I think that in general the vocal processing as well as the effects and the guitars and everything else makes sense. There's a massive amount of reverb in this track as well as a final note that I think simmers and kind of creates this interesting aesthetic where you're it's just wafting in and you're just encouraged to sit there, and it's just very smooth, I think, because of that. But that is my review of this track. Flowers for Juno, titled Without Love, 7 Deadly Sins mix, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.